Hello, everyone. We still have a few spots left in Kinetix Summer School here in Longmont, Colorado. It's happening from July 30th through August 8th. Kinetix is my method of mapping the whole human organism through partner fascia release. We'll be gathering for 10 days to learn kinetics and explore our capacity for healing and regeneration together. We'll also be taking a one-day adventure break to Rocky Mountain National Park, and I'm really looking forward to that. So for more information, you can go to kinetix.academy and click on Summer School or click the link in the description below. With that, please enjoy this episode.
This is an opportunity to wake up to the freedom inside of the body, to lift it. It's like this energetic field that we lift into that allows us to experience freedom like never before. And then I will say that what I think happens too is that as we take a posture of freedom and let those energy circuits run and circulate, then I really believe that, well, I don't even believe it. It's actually proven that impacts the way that we see and we perceive the world. So maybe through taking a posture of freedom and more open and trust, then we actually begin to see the world differently. And that impacts and shapes everything.
All right, Paris, we're here. We're doing it. Podcast. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself, but I'll introduce you first to everybody from my perspective. So Paris is a dear friend of mine. She's also been a student of mine. She does kinetics and other things we're going to talk about today, in particular the Bowspring method of movement, which she's very passionate about and I'm intrigued by. And Paris, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast is I really see you as someone not just doing, let's say, body work or working with the body in movement methods, but I see you as someone who has a North Star of freedom. I think that means something to you. I mean, I think it means something to a lot of people. But I really see you aiming to find out what it means to live that in all kinds of ways. So that's, obviously we're here doing the Human Freedom Project podcast. And I actually don't know if I have explicitly shared this with you. I think I have. But the theme of this podcast is to explore, or the goal of it is to explore the 5 primary constraints of modern life. Not on every podcast, but with various guests who can help illuminate these, what I see as these 5 primary constraints. So the first is the body. We're born, we live, we die. It's a constraint. We feel pain in it. Relationships and social life, money and economics, the state, and then environments, both natural or ecological and also human created, like toxicities and buildings and things like that. So you and I both work primarily in the domain of bodies, but we both know that inherently with that comes social life, human beings, people. Bodies aren't just bodies. So there's a lot that goes into that. So that's my little introduction. Maybe you could introduce yourself and just share, what a little bit about you and why you agreed to come do this podcast.
I am so happy and honored and grateful to be here sharing a conversation with you. You have always been a mentor and a woman that I receive a ton of value from, just hearing your perspectives, and the knowledge that you've brought into my life has shape-shifted me quite a bit. And so it's so fun to share a friendship with you. And it's so fun to be having this conversation here today. So thank you. And yeah, I really describe myself as I'm just an ambassador for feeling really good, like how it is that we can support our bodies and our minds in wellness so that we can experience more ultimate freedom. And so I do that with nutrition therapy, myofascial release, body work through kinetics, and then a movement system that has really touched and transformed my personal life that I love to share with people called the Bowspring. And it's through my experience of pain and my experience of imbalance that really drives me towards my North Star, that drives me towards living a dynamically balanced life in a deeper conversation of what freedom means. And so, yeah. It's funny that you mentioned the North Star, because that's been a strong meditation that's been coming to me lately, and feeling a magnetic pull. So I love to meditate with magnets and like feel that the energy pull inward that is unseen, right? But you feel it, and it's exemplified through the magnets moving together. And then also when they repel each other, and there's an invisible energy that, sorry, my dog's going a little crazy right now because there's a cat outside, but there's that invisible energy that is the field that keeps it coming from in. So anyway, moving with the meditation of the magnetic field, like pulling in my, like for my North Star, like so on track with it that you just can't deny it. So that was fun to hear you describe me that way.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm curious if in this moment it feels interesting at all for you to dive in today to your, any of your story of like what about the pains that brought you into these, passions and your career, and do you want to go there? We don't have to. Does it feel?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I, like most other people, had this orientation towards pain that I really tried to shut it out of my life and avoid it as much as possible. And then interestingly, through that pattern of avoiding and trying to get rid of it, to numb it, because pain can be scary and pain can be hard and challenging. Because of that challenge, having this relationship with it until I met you, and this perspective to turn towards pain and to experience more curiosity inside of it that can lend to experiencing more answers to like why it's here and seeing it more as a messenger. And so it was through a physical injury. Well, I've experienced different versions of pain through my life, but it was through a physical injury that I experienced the limitations of this injury and the pain of it, physically and emotionally. And it as I turned towards it, it gave me answers that I was experiencing and asking questions to in my emotional life. And seeing their and feeling their interconnection was like totally new for me. And inside of that, it felt like this profound, like deeper embodiment of life, because now the pain was a doorway to experience these revelations about what wasn't working in my emotion, wasn't working for me emotionally. That was, I was manifesting physically. And so it just, it gave me, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form in a past tense of like, now I see pain in this way always, but it just widens the lens. And when you can widen the lens, you can see more, and it can offer me more. So that was a way that I would have learned to orient to it.
So this is kind of fun, because I don't think you and I, we never really talk shop in this way. We're too busy talking about the state of the world and playing and doing other things when we get together. So I'm curious to have you share, because I think it would be helpful for people, especially in, in my audience anyway, and probably yours also, if they're listening to this. One thing I'm really passionate about teaching is untangling, because, I call it untangling the enmeshed sensations and emotions, so that we know what is purely physical versus maybe what's emotional, because it can seem like it's all the same thing. Or maybe we experience it as predominantly physical, but there could be an emotional component. And I do want to be clear too, for anyone listening, like there are physical things we need to tend to. So this is what I was curious for you to share, because I know in the beginning when we met, it was a confusing kind of tangle, like it is for so many people. It was for me too. And what we did together, and it's not the only path, it's just what we did together, is we used this practice of kinetics. So stepping on people, stepping on each other, you getting stepped on by me, you stepping on other people, where you got to physically, viscerally feel you and what's inside. And that, yeah, I guess I'm curious to hear you speak to how you now orient to the physical versus the emotional. Like if you could articulate, I don't know if you think about that.
Yeah, I'll do my best. And I recall one of the first times that I was stepped on, I had a very emotional experience where I immediately began crying. And like I felt seen at such a deep level. And I think a part of me was startled at how deep I was feeling seen through like no eyes, or I don't know who the witness was. Maybe it was just me. And this burst of emotion came forward. And I'm so proud of myself that so much of the time I like really let myself ride inside of the emotion and just like feel it fully, kind of like boogie boarding or something, like, okay, like here we are. So I got to ride that wave while still being stepped on, because you were stepping on me and checking in. And there is that point where you want to not step on someone when they're having a visceral emotional experience. And then there's a time where you keep stepping. And so it was definitely that time, and to like move my body through the emotions. And inside of the emotions, it really felt just other dimensional. And I don't know if I could tease out one or the other in those of what the emotional body is and versus the physical. It just feels like this enmeshment. And so what that gave me though was an access to see that this was like I could feel my emotions being stored in my tissues. And then, so I don't know, honestly, to answer your question, I don't know if it's been detangled. I don't know what is what. I will say that, like after the stepping, I journaled a lot. And there was a lot of clarity that came about something that I needed to handle emotionally, or like just brought light to really previously brought breath and brought like literally hyaluronic acid and fascia hydration to these really, really deep parts of myself that could now be seen. And so sometimes clarity would come after, but yeah. And who knows how that continues to unfold though, right? Like how many decisions are now made from a different place now that I feel so much more open and inside of my body and more real. I don't have these emotions clouding my sight.
So yeah, this is, we're going to go somewhere I wanted to go anyway with this. So when you were learning with me was 2019 going into 2020. So we entered this crucible that the whole world experienced, but also while we were in another crucible, which, you know, we won't go into, but that's when we were doing all this stepping and I was getting to know you and you were getting to know me. And I want to share the way that I have seen you grow the last few years. And then I'd love for you to share if it feels true or not, or, and to put it maybe in your own words too. Sometimes it's fun to get reflected to. So I really see that it's such an interesting timing. And that's a mystery that, we could just leave for the gods to know, the timing of things. Right. But in 2019, going into 2020, you were, still dealing with a partially frozen shoulder. You were getting stepped on for the first time. You have that experience you just described of the emotion coming up. I remember you actually saying, I've been waiting my whole life for this. Something like that. Like it was almost like tears of relief. And then very shortly after that experience, I think, because that happened in Durango, where I was living in at that time, 2020 happened, COVID happened. And through that whole experience, the last few years, I have seen you go through a pretty intense personal transformation around speaking your truth, standing in yourself, your I being, your, who you are, who you be, and then really standing for things as well in the world publicly, even, it's not like, well, no offense, Paris, but you don't have 1 million followers or anything, but like, it doesn't matter because doing these things publicly is hard. That's what it doesn't matter how many people are seeing it or not. So I saw you, unsure how to do that at first and unsure how to work through some of the things that were happening in your own personal life around what was happening with COVID. And I'm sure anyone listening had their version of it, right? No matter what side of whatever argument you were on, it was hard if you were in a disagreement or a conflict. So, and I now sort of, my perception of you today, this is where I'd love for you to correct me if I'm wrong. My perception of you today is that while you're still grappling with a lot like any human, for the most part, things are kind of in their rightful places. Like, your body is bodying and your emotions are happening in the emotional realm, and you're doing your relationships in ways that even though there's still conflict, maybe, or, disagreements or whatever, there's maybe more ease about it. And it seems to me like you don't have much pain in your body. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. It's absolutely remarkable.
Yeah. So this is what I wanted to point out or just reflect that, like, that's actually the process I saw you go through. And I just think it's interesting timing that you happen to be in a mentorship with me in 2019 going into 2020. But I definitely think that everything else that you decided to do, to speak up about things that matter to you, to confront things that felt, right or wrong or whatever, was a part of your process
of healing a physical injury. Yeah.
With you were carrying inside and not expressing, right? You share what that journey was like for you, and if I got anything wrong with you, correct?
Yeah. Well, it was very fascinating timing, the coalition of all of these things kind of lining up. And this experience, like, just beginning to, like, question the common narrative that was in circulation, seeming like the only thing that you could really believe that was socially acceptable. I began questioning. Really, what gave me courage to continue questioning was my mentors. Both you were questioning things and in being an advocate for asking questions around what we were being told were truths. And my mentor, John Friend, and that he's one of the founders of the Bowspring. And these, you and Kinetix and the Bowspring and the founders of the Bowspring are really powerful teachers in my life. And I feel really grateful to have had the experience of blinking my eyes awake in what I was experiencing as deception, and then also seeing my mighty companions and my mentors next to me, like also asking questions. So I want to mention that because that was, I don't know where I am in my relationship to courage and my meter to truth had I not had really important people next to me who I very much so value, also asking questions and rooting me on. So that gave me so much courage because we were at a time with so much unknown. And so it was kind of interesting because in the experience of healing a frozen shoulder, which anybody who has experienced that, it's just so not fun. And it can be a really long recovery. And definitely in my experience, there are a ton of emotions involved in creating this sticky, dense, tightened energy around the shoulder through the clavicle. And the more that I sort of exercised my question aloud, the more that, so many things happened, but one of the things happened is kind of this opening through my ribs and opening through my shoulders, like a lightness began to be experienced from the inside out. Now, from the outside in, because I was publicly just asking uncomfortable questions, both to my family and to really dear friends and also online. And the pushback that I would receive, that was very constricting and contracting to my energy, because usually through my life, I've been kind of healing the people pleaser wound, like, oh, sure, not pushing back too much. And so it just gave me this opportunity to witness myself in so many different realms, but ultimately, having a connection to my North Star and to North and what felt really true to my heart. And knowing that if I were to make decisions outside of that, then I would be betraying myself. And I couldn't bear with this betrayal that the weight that it would add to my body. And also the feedback loop of, whoa, when I do this, when I ask uncomfortable questions or want to have deeper conversations about this, then I would experience this lightness and more freedom manifesting through my physical form. And that just immediately felt like my body was giving me feedback that this is important to do, how big or small, it maybe 1 million people could be watching or no one is watching, but either way, making that decision and feeling really grateful that I exercised that in myself and gave myself that experience.
Yeah. So without, I don't need you to name names or go into it in detail, but you went through some pretty intense stuff with people in your life around disagreements, right?
Yeah.
And it was hard. Yeah. And I just want to say that because it's not just an inner journey.
Yeah.
Like it's, and I don't, you've probably heard me say this somewhere, but it's like a central part of my teaching and how I'm able to help people online is illuminating how fear of pain and fear of freedom work together to keep us stuck.
Yeah.
Literally manifesting in you maybe as a frozen shoulder. I'm frozen. I'm stuck. I'm so frozen, a part of me can't move. Mm-hmm. And so fear of pain is, characterized usually by grasping for relief, trying to fix it, trying to numb it, I don't want this pain, trying to, find anything that will get rid of it. And fear of freedom usually has to do with, for you. It was the freedom to speak up, speak my mind, speak my truth, or at least question aloud what I'm questioning. And that is scary for all of us because it comes with genuine risk of rejection, of banishment from the tribe, of, ridicule or public embarrassment, public humiliation. Maybe you end up being wrong. It's like, and you're embarrassed. So there's a lot of genuine social risk with the freedom to be ourselves or to speak our mind, or at least find out who we even are by opening our mouth. So anyway, I just want to share that for anyone listening, but maybe also you to frame it like that. And I see that's why I'm like, your North Star is freedom, because you had to struggle and wriggle through and grapple with these genuine constraints of physical pain and your body. But then also on that journey of like, okay, no, now it's the time for me to speak up and say something. And I just think you're an amazing embodiment of that process. And it took many years. It wasn't not like an instant thing. And it's hard. It's hard. Like I watched you do the hard work and not even know if it was the right thing to do sometimes,
Right. Yeah. Yes.
So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. So what does, I guess, I have my whole version of definition of freedom, and I'm going to be trying to define it on this podcast with all kinds of people. What does freedom mean to you, Paris?
Yeah. Freedom means it's a way of being, and with uninhibited expression, like an uninhibited expression of life reflects freedom to me. That's kind of like an umbrella version, and I think that it manifests so differently. And when I can like unshackle myself from how people meet my care of how people perceive me or what they think about me, to allow myself to fully express, wow, like what a gift to myself and what a gift to others. And I actually think that in that authentic freedom space, when it is like genuine freedom, then it's like, it's not expressing from this place of like, ooh, I need attention. Ooh, look at me, because that isn't a quality of freedom. That's not like a frequency inside of freedom to me. It's, it's this expression of self that is uninhibited, that comes from an authentic, organic place that knows just the right amount. And, yeah, that's what it means to me in this moment.
I see one of your geniuses, maybe your biggest genius, I don't know, is play.
Yeah. Yeah, I like play.
And I think that's why what you just said fits. This uninhibited expression. That's what kids do when they play. Uninhibited play. And there is, we've forgotten how to play. And play is actually really important, I think, for human development. And, we so often just think it's for kids. And I love watching you play, and I love the way you play, and I love your invitations to play. So what do you like? How does play fit into your, maybe it's so innate to you that like you wouldn't even think to name it as like an important piece of development or freedom or whatever.
So I practice it quite a bit. I have a dog, and this dog and we play quite a bit. And it's like I do things to cultivate play. So I'm like hopping on my trampoline because there's going to be a natural buoyant energy inside of play. I skip. Even when I don't feel like it's necessarily helping me play, like I'm not like laughing in this joyous sense of being, but I'm like doing something different that maybe brings up a little energy of silliness. And so I get to teach movement to kids and adults, and bringing in the aspect of play is so incredibly critical, because it's like we can take ourselves so seriously. I can take myself so seriously. And then all of a sudden, like I'm clenching my butt and like my muscles are clenched, or like I'm in a posture that is, shortening my belly, and it's not giving me access to a full breath where I can then open up play in my body and in my brain. So it's like I can take myself so seriously. And I actually have like been practicing using those moments to be like, oh, come on now, So like I invite anyone, even who's listening to this, to like, let me just take a little shimmer, little shake to our shoulders and like open up our arms. And you know what? Also, I like to engage in play with the jaw, because like thinking about where it is that we hold a lot of tension, that keeps us disconnected from energy flowing, and energy flowing is going to unlock some sort of play in our being. And so like, boy, do we hold a ton of tension here, and therefore in our hips because of their interconnection. And even just like taking a deep breath. So anybody who wants to play along with me for a moment, and like take a deep breath through your nose. And then let a verbal exhalation, and you can open your mouth and move your tongue and give it a little voice. So let's do it again. And with that,
I didn't join you because it would have been hard for them to hear a good expression. So that's why I was holding back.
So now I'll let it be your turn, because I don't want you to miss this. Because when you get that verbal exhalation and then the movement through your tongue, it relaxes your jaw, which can tighten energy and really inhibit the way that energy flows through our body systems. When we can open it up, then we can experience more of this expansive and release that comes with it. So like, I'll let your turn, and we could take an inhale together and a verbal exhalation. Yeah. Shift your face and like,
yeah, I've been doing a version of that lately, because I've been doing a lot of Zooms and sitting at the computer, and I just have a history of a tight jaw anyway. That's something I don't think I'll share today because it would probably look really weird. But basically, letting my tongue flop while shaking my head side to side.
Yeah.
So good, actually. Our tongue gets so tight.
Our tongue gets so tight. Probably because we don't feel free. We feel, very inhibited in our expression, and that is manifesting in a lot of different ways. One of them being holding this tension there that like wants to move, wants to, yeah.
All right. Awesome. So everybody, if you're listening to this, you missed out on watching.
Yeah, you look silly.
But yeah, this is why I love Paris, because she just like, yes, let's play.
I love it too. Kids really appreciate it. What just this opportunity to play and to also see their role models in a more playful energy. Then it can just open up laughter. It can open up spontaneous experiences and expressions of joy, and expressions in general. And it just gives us a richer opportunity to be.
Okay, so through kind of your own journey of searching for answers for pain and things that were going on with your body, you found me and Kinetix. You found other things as well, and you have the nutrition. Do you call it coaching? Nutrition coaching?
Yeah, I'm a nutrition therapist, so nutrition coaching.
And then you found Bowspring. And I have really loved watching what you have done, joining your, knowledge of the body that you've been gaining through kinetics, stepping on people, and this practice of Bowspring. So maybe guide us through that story. Like, how did you find Bowspring? Why did it light you up? Like, what was that? And why do you tease it?
Happily. So I found Bowspring in 2016 when I was experiencing pretty consistent neck pain and lower back pain. At that point in my journey, I was teaching yoga full time in Boulder and in Denver, Colorado, and taking about 4 to 6 like hot yoga classes each week. Yoga is it was really a saving grace in my life when it did come into my life. And I'm so grateful to it as a practice. And it was through consistently moving my body in the alignment that was being taught through modern postural yoga that, unfortunately, though, doing that repetitively, it brought a lot of pain into my body. And I didn't really know why I was experiencing pain because I was way too married to yoga, and I had invested in so much of yoga being the truth that it could never, ever be what was creating the pain I was experiencing. And so I was living in a yoga mecca of the West, Boulder, Colorado, and yet nobody could solve these issues that I was experiencing. Also in my elbows, developing a terrible case of elbow tendonitis.
Wait, so I just have to pause you because living in Boulder, 2016.
Yeah.
It's so funny that I don't know, I probably knew this at some before, but
because we were both there at that time.
We were there at the same time and we didn't meet. Yeah. Okay.
Probably passed each other like Sprouts or something. And nobody could, I would go to these yoga therapists and it wouldn't touch the pain. And I'm like, okay, still needing an answer. And so continuing to look. And at that point, I had heard about Bowspring from a friend and had finally decided to give it a try. And it turned my world upside down and inside out because it literally is almost a complete 180 degree difference from modern postural yoga. So
can you define for people what you mean by modern postural yoga?
Yeah. So it's going to be the alignment taught in typical vinyasa classes, or if you go to an align and shine class, it's very linear. It is moving with these ideas that we stack the bones and that we want the body to be and the spine to be as straight as possible so that it can be as long as possible. And so it's moving and orienting your body around this alignment that creates then these shapes. And so I had been practicing that for many, many years, had done trainings and was teaching it and was pretty invested. And what I noticed when I had first begun practicing or started Bowspring is that several things was that whoa, I'm not in pain. My back wasn't in pain and my neck it initially did not go away, but the back easing that pain was what kept me coming back. And then eventually my neck pain was able to get cleared. But it was this feedback that, whoa, my back doesn't hurt. This is pretty cool. Okay, what's going on here? Then the second thing was I was so incredibly emotionally triggered. I was and intellectually triggered because this was exactly opposite of everything that I had been taught, everything that I had invested in. That was truth to me. That was truth to me. And all of a sudden, every single part of it was becoming questioned. And that is very disorienting incredibly uncomfortable. And what I am so grateful to this relationship that I've built with myself, though, because I was like, if you're that triggered, let's go back. Like, there's something here for you if you're that triggered. So it was, probably about 15 classes in, I would leave class and my mood would feel really good. My back didn't hurt. I was opening my body in a way that was always told to me, never do. And all of a sudden experiencing a ton of freedom.
Can we just pause since what you're experiencing and describing is so visual?
Yeah.
Can we describe it? And the reason it feels important for me to have you describe it is I came to the same conclusion as you. But I didn't find something like Bowspring. I just came to the conclusion because I started doing yoga when I was 17, and that would have been in 1997. Mm-hmm. And I was hyper flexible, hyper mobile already because of gymnastics. So I got this validation from teachers like, oh my God, you're so flexible. You're amazing. You're going to be such a good yogi. And that was nice for someone who wants to be good, has patterns, survival programs like people pleasing. My version of those. Ooh, I like praise. That feels nice. And I don't want to get in trouble or do the thing you're not supposed to do and then get punished for it. Totally. And so I did a lot of yoga from 1997 to, 2015, 16.
Yeah, about 20 years. Yeah.
And then came to the conclusion ultimately through my own experience in my body, but also with working in Boulder with so many yogis who were in pain. and I just started to question it. And when you really stop to think about it, the postures they're actually exacerbating most of the problems caused by modern lifestyles. Mm-hmm. Trying to lengthen hamstrings that are ironically actually overstretched already. We don't think about it that way, but from the glutes to the middle of the posterior chain on that thigh, they're getting overstretched when we sit like we're doing right now, actually. And then we go to yoga and we do forward folds and we're not strengthening the front body. Anyway, I could go on, but yeah. Very imbalancing in a way, and it doesn't. What you're going to tell us about, I know, is more the fluidity, but it is. I have come to the conclusion that yoga causes a lot of injury.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've also come to that conclusion.
So, So with that in mind, would you describe? You were saying you were doing postures that were the exact opposite, this 180 from yoga. So that were like a no-no.
Yeah.
Can you describe one of those?
Yeah, totally. So throughout my whole yoga career, I'll say, when I would go to classes, that my butt, it naturally wanted to bloom instead of like tuck. So it's common. There's common cueing in yoga to gently tuck your tailbone, to draw your lower ribs in, and to squeeze your shoulders on your back. And so my butt never really wanted to tuck. And there was a lot of emphasis from different teachers throughout my trainings and classes that I would attend that were like, hey, tuck it. You're going to hurt yourself through encouraging this lower back curve. So Bowspring is learning how to inhabit all of the curves of our spine. So moving in the direction where at the cervical spine where it goes inward, and then the thoracic spine where it moves outward, and then the lumbar spine where it moves inward. And it's these places that go in and out that we can really trace through our whole body, that when we begin to embody these curves and just even with the curves of the spine, then that lower back curve will gently be present. And I just found this really like a way deeper breath in my body, a more relaxing exhale. My nervous system could finally be like, oh, this is the 0 point. This is where you're not holding any stress. And it was because I was plugged into the nature, the blueprint of my spine. Whereas through the other classes that I've attended for so long, I was shaping myself out of the blueprint by dropping my bum and moving my lower back a little bit further back in the effort to straighten my spine. But it just brought pain because our bodies and our spine aren't straight.
Yeah, I want to pause on this for a moment with you because I feel it's really important for people, for us to just put this out in the world, for people to think about at least. Mm-hmm. So much of the modern, the lenses through which we diagnose or assess both posture and pain, but especially pain. Like, I can't tell you how many people I went to that told me, Elisha, the reason you're in pain is you have an excessively curved lower back and you absolutely have to get it straighter. Now, and so then they would try to have me kind of tuck the tail and activate my core by sucking in and then rib cage down. And I did 8 years of this with various personal trainers, and it only made my pain worse. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's just me. I'm curious to get your thoughts on, I don't know if you have any thoughts on like, where did this modern wisdom come from? These doctrines of like, straight spine, and I don't know. And then B, you've been doing Bowspring now for a long time. And not only are you not in pain, you're experiencing a lightness of being, you're accentuating your curves. I've actually noticed, just watching your transformation, that your actual like lower back almost looks flatter in a way. I don't want to say flatter, but the way that it transitions from back to butt. Mm-hmm. It's not, versus I think, for example, in me, I still have dysfunction that I'd like to work with. It's like there is curve and then down. It's like there isn't it doesn't have the gradual curve that I think Bowspring is accentuating. And I'm just really curious about how leaning into the curves in a weird way might actually cause strength on the opposite side. I'm not sure, because I think that what people think the danger is over strengthening those lower back muscles.
Totally. Big time. And it happens initially, oftentimes with beginners, because let me just backtrack for a moment. So there's a really strong emphasis to get long through our curves. So when somebody sees a Bowspring posture, and they see the hips behind the ribs and that lower back curve present. And what is more difficult to see is that while the lower back curve is present, there's a filling and a lifting of the ribs away from the hips. So the belly gets really long inside of that. And then we can safely position the hips behind the ribs without over tilting the pelvis forward and crunching the lower back. So it's interesting that it's actually through the feet that we direct where the hips go. So oftentimes with a new beginner, they see the lower back curve because that's a signature point in the Bowspring, and they'll initiate that curve from your lower back muscles grabbing. And so that's the tendency. And then the practice is to be aware of that and actually then take the awareness to the feet and begin to engage the feet in a cool way that not only positions the hips behind the ribs where you can safely engage in the lower back curve, but actually light up the front chain, the anterior chain of muscles, and the posterior chain simultaneously. Then it's through this, as the legs are engaged from the feet and the hips are opening from what the feet are doing, that you begin to lift and mound the glutes. So that's going to heal the lower back. Oftentimes because the QL muscles, which are the lower back muscles, are so practiced at overworking. Oh my goodness. And then typically if the butt is working, usually people are dropping their butt down and squeezing the butt in where it narrows the pelvic floor. And now you're training your butt to drop. So it's this really powerful, unique symphony of these pieces working together that are they're periphery of the hips and the lower back, but has significant impact on what it is that we achieve through that.
Yeah. There's a lot.
There's a lot. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we'll come back to all that in a minute, because I do want you to describe more bowspring, and I want to talk about pelvic instability.
Okay.
Right. You were in the middle of describing your story. So you found bowspring, your back pain kind of disappeared, your neck pain started to disappear, or did disappear.
And about 8 months into my journey.
Mm-hmm. And so was that like a dawning of awareness in you that these two pains anyway, maybe not all pain, but these two pains anyway, seemed pretty related to the postures you were consistently putting yourself in through postural yoga?
Yes.
That were then corrected by putting yourself in literally the opposite.
Literally the opposite, with an emphasis on engaging my muscles differently and supporting the directionality of that muscle engagement.
Okay. So, and that was 2016, 2017, somewhere in there. And you've been, I mean, you're like fully in with bowspring. And so where are you at now with your bowspring practice, with working with the body? And then I want to circle back around to what you help people with, something that I see so frequently, pelvic instability. Maybe it could be a resource for people if they want to pursue healing that through the bowspring method.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, to me, this is just it's a template of how to move with freedom in our bodies. And it's an invitation to apply this alignment into most of our everyday postures that we are participating in. And then if we're not participating, because it's a very open posture, it's a posture that connects you to your backbone. And that's why I think it's so relevant this day and age, when we do need to push back against people when we are being invited to stand up for our values and be able to express ourselves with freedom, then we've got to be connected to our backbone. And so I love supporting people in introducing themselves to their backbone, really finding a lot of courage and power, because, and it takes practice to connect with our backbone and stand inside of our values and then take action when our values are being threatened or disrespected. And so I teach online classes, and I share this practice in Colorado where I live. I share it at several different studios, and it's a really beautiful part of my life. I feel so grateful because also a little bit can go a long way. It's really kind of turned the paradigm of like how much exercise that we need. Like it needs to fit inside of like, you need an hour and a half of this, but because it's so efficient and because it's so powerful, a little bit of this medicine does go a long way. And so I don't have to do as much to get a really big bang for my buck. And it's
did you in the beginning?
Yeah, I would say, because there's this process of unlearning and relearning. And then through the relearning, it's like understanding what muscles have a tendency to always engage because they're so practiced at engaging, that actually take away from the efforts of muscles that have been asleep. And so once we find this redistribution of energy and muscle engagement, and that everything is firing to its degree, that's also tonifying our fascia network. It's bringing hydration there. And then we're plugging into the power of the fascia, which is equally holding us while equally expanding us, experiencing lightness, equal grounding, equal rising. And it's like this tensegrity that we begin to plug into. And so then, with everything working to its designed purpose, then we don't have to work as hard. We don't have to do like 20 minutes of arms, like leg day, core day. It's like all happening at once. But I will say, to answer your question more specifically, that is gradual. When we first begin, it is isolating muscle groups. It's like learning what that feels like to engage, to then wake up to this universal embodiment, universal engagement?
Yeah, so just to be clear with everyone listening, I've been aware of Paris's passion for Bowspring for a few years now. And I haven't participated yet, but I'm intrigued and I want to, and I have pelvic instability issues that I still haven't resolved. So if anyone is listening to this and you've been in my audience for a while, you probably are aware that I had a course for a long time called Solving Pelvic Instability. And that was primarily geared towards people with pain related to what I call pelvic instability. It's one or both hips out of alignment, and or one or more core muscles not firing. And to me, the core is the entire core set. So it's pelvic floor and the diaphragm and the glutes and the QLs and the psoas. So it's not just abs. And we can have head to toe. I mean, you can have a shoulder issue related to that, a jaw issue. You could have foot, ankle, and knee issues if you have pelvic instability, flat feet. I mean, so many things. And we could certainly ask the question, chicken or egg, which came first, flat feet or the pelvic instability. But I'm intrigued about Bowspring as a corrective for pelvic instability, because what I see you doing, at least as far as like these, the alignment of the hips goes and the activation of all these core muscles I'm talking about, where they're all supporting buoyancy in the body. So maybe you could, just talk a little bit about what you help people with. So you have an online, you joined the ranks of the online, you're doing the online thing. I love it.
Oh my goodness. It's such a trip and it's such an incredible opportunity to connect with so many people. And so I have a couple of online courses and, it is, I have a membership for people who have been practicing for a while, who have a better understanding of kind of like the foundations. But in my beginner courses, I talk about the foundations and really what the main ingredients for this recipe and for this formula are, so that not only do you get to like heal pain with this, but actually utilize the power of positioning our body in this natural, intelligent alignment to prevent pain and to prevent injury. And so I also work with people one-on-one, although that's becoming a little less and less as my online offerings grow. But, and I see people, I live in Pueblo, Colorado, and I have several clients who see me personally here as well. So it's such a great gift to share, because I really feel that at this cellular soul level, there is this awakening that is inviting each person into the interior terrain of their body and do this self evaluation, deepen our ability to self-reflect and get curious about like what the pattern that we've been running from probably our whole lives that are just accentuated through technology and our furniture. And it's this new awareness that begins to grow inside as we emerge into a posture that is lifting our heart, that really demonstrates optimism in a time where there's a lot of uncertainty. That's hard, that can be challenging to lift your heart in its light and then emerge into this posture that is of like, yes, I'm here on purpose. I have an expression to be expressed, and I trust myself to do that. And so there's, posture and our bodies touches every single moment of our lives. So I just don't take what it is that I do for granted. And it's really quite significant, and I'm so grateful.
I know there are people who go through your courses that maybe they have pain, maybe they have, I think you have a lot of women doing it postpartum, pelvic floor, people with pelvic floor issues. But it's not just that, like most things, Kinetix, eating right, we often come to these things through pain when they could be preventive. But so it can be either for people in pain, or it can be for pain prevention, can be for optimization. That's something you and I are both passionate about. Is like, let's not just have the absence of pain, but actually feel good
Totally.
In our bodies. So as I imagine it's difficult to verbally describe Bowspring. I mean, maybe we'll pull a couple pictures, or you can send me some pictures to put on screen. But why should people do Bowspring?
Yeah, totally. If you want to experience another way of being in your body, then you would try Bowspring. If you're experiencing pain, any sort of strain that feels tight and constricted, and you continue to do the workouts that you do because you know them, or you go to continue the classes that you go to because you know it. And so I invite you to just check in with that. Could the ways that you're being encouraged to align your body potentially be impacting the way that you feel in your body? And I mean, to your community of people who are seeking and choosing to find and experience freedom in their lives through the myriad of ways that life presents itself to us, this is an opportunity to wake up to the freedom inside of the body, to lift in. It's like this energetic field that we lift into that allows us to experience freedom like never before. And then I will say that what I think happens too is that as we take a posture of freedom and let those energy circuits run and circulate, then I really believe that, well, I don't even believe it. It's actually proven that impacts the way that we see and we perceive the world. So maybe through taking a posture of freedom and more open and trust, then we actually begin to see the world differently. And that impacts and shapes everything.
So that's maybe a great way to wrap this up, and just to sort of give people visuals. I know you've been kind of demonstrating it here on the video for those watching. Like Bowspring, if you look it up, if you watch any videos, you can follow Paris on Instagram. We'll make sure to put links where they can find you. But it's like this modern postural yoga, as you've been describing it, it's a lot of kind of closing in or folding over, or as you said, kind of stacking. Whereas Bowspring is really about lifting. It's really about opening. It's breaking the rules of things like tuck your tail and tuck your ribs and suck your belly in. And it's saying, no, let's lift the ribs and let's lift the tail and breathe into the curves. And so just for anyone that might be listening saying, wow, that sounds expansive. That sounds a lot better than like this constrictive tucking and sucking. And, if you think about even the words we use, it's like, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I know, I said I haven't tried it yet, but I want to. I
cannot wait for the day. I'm just excited too. You've opened my mind so much with the different offerings that you've brought into my world. And I also see this as a practice that enhances our ability to connect with our creative self and our muses and intelligence. Like really the way that we are posturing our body impacts everything, our neurotransmitters, our hormones, like biochemically and beyond. And so when we lift into a more open posture and then ground into that and experience more strength and get the butt on board, wow, it opens up life. Our creativity becomes enhanced and freedom becomes more available.
Yeah. And I also just want to say, and I know you have to go here real quick, but what you're doing and what Bowspring stands for is literally the complete opposite of everything I've been hearing, looking for solutions to pelvic floor stuff, which is like, release the pelvic floor, but then strengthen it, which is usually through contracting and pulling and sucking and tucking. And what you're saying is, no, open it. And strength, there's a strength though. You have to be strong to be open. That's
totally, or there has to be an initial engagement And then through the engagement, it's learning how to engage while simultaneously be soft.
Yeah.
It's learning how they are very balancing to each other. And that is, it's such a cool way to begin to open the body, because it's through the engagement that you bring length into the muscles, that it's so sustainable for muscle health, fascia hydration. I mean, just kind of all of the above. It's a 360-degree embodiment. It's learning how to inhabit our bodies, every cell, and be centered inside of our body so that we can expand our awareness past our body.
All right, Paris. Well, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you and Bowspring?
Yeah, all of the social media suspects, except Twitter. I mostly do Facebook and Instagram, and those will be linked here. And then my website will also be linked here, and all of my offerings are there. And you can learn about when it is that I relaunch my courses.
Will you just say what your website is, but we'll make sure to put it in the description too.
It's intelligentmovementlab.com.
Great. Intelligentmovementlab.com. Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll make sure to have all the links that people might need to find you. I highly encourage everybody to check out what you're doing. I love that it's rebellious and inviting more openness versus closedness. I love that about it. So thank you for doing what you do. And maybe we'll do another one of these, because we didn't even really talk about fascia, although you did.
Yes. Let's do. And thank you so much for your time. And thank you for inviting me into this space.